Welcome to the deep dive. Okay, so today we're jumping into Jeannette Walls' memoir, The Glass Castle. It's a book many of you know, of course.
A really powerful one.
Definitely. And what we're doing is looking at how literary critics, educators, psychologists even, really unpack this story. We're digging into the structure, the symbolism, and, well, the psychological stuff underneath it all.
Right. And it's interesting, how it gets used in academic settings. It's actually a big deal in university common book programs. Winthrop University is a good example.
Oh, okay. So they give it to incoming students.
Yeah, exactly. And it's chosen pretty deliberately. The idea is to show students, hey, look at these young people who, despite, massive obstacles, still succeed, especially academically.
So it's meant to be inspiring, like framing it alongside stories like A Hope in the Unseen or The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind.
Precisely. It's sort of a, if they can do it, you can too message. Think about the Walls kids. Lori, Jeannette, Brian, Maureen, and their parents, Rex and Rosemary. The universities hope that reading about those struggles makes students' own challenges seem, well, more manageable.
Building resilience through perspective makes sense. And when critics look at how they built that resilience, the structure of the book itself seems really important. I noticed that clear progression, the desert, then Welch, and finally, New York City.
Absolutely. That structure is fundamental. Academics often call it a triptych, like a painting with 3 panels.
Right.
And that's all framed by Wall's adult view, especially her relationship with her mother.
Yeah.
And this structure, it sets up the big question of the book.
Which is?
How did the 3 older kids, Lori, Jeannette, Brian, manage to get on this upward path, this comic trajectory in literary terms, while their parents seem stuck on a downward, almost tragic path?
Okay, wait. Comic trajectory. That sounds a bit odd given all the suffering. What does comic mean in this context? It's not about humor, is it?
No, not at all. Good question. In literary theory, comic doesn't mean funny. It refers to a narrative structure where the protagonist overcomes obstacles, things resolve, and they kind of reintegrate successfully into society, often moving upward.
Okay, so upward mobility, overcoming problems. Got it.
Exactly. Whereas the tragic path, which Rex and Rosemary seem to follow, is more about a downward spiral, failure to adapt, often ending in, isolation or death in literary tradition.
That clarifies the structure a lot. And speaking of complexity, Rex Walls. The book immediately connects him to some surprising literary figures. The epigraph from Dylan Thomas's poem on his birthday, that seemed like a really unusual choice.
It does seem strange at first glance, yeah. Thomas, this brilliant Welsh poet who drank himself to death.
Yeah, that was
Fantastic.
interesting.
But the analysis points to some really specific parallels. Even the settings. Thomas had this writing shed in Wales, right? And the Walls house at 93 Little Hobart Street in Welch.
The one falling apart.
That's the one. Both are described almost identically in some analyses. Slant, racking, held up by shaky pillars or stilts. It's like the unstable architecture mirrors the unstable lives inside.
Wow, okay, a physical symbol of their inner chaos.
Precisely. And then, of course, the obvious theme, alcoholism. Thomas wrestling with his wounds, Rex with his little bit of a drinking situation, as Rosemary downplayed it.
Right.
But here's a key point. That Welsh house, falling down as it was also a place of intense creativity. Rosemary painted constantly, the kids did homework. Jeannette started her journalism career there.
So Walls the writer writing about learning to write, just like Thomas the poet wrote about his craft.
Exactly. That tension between the decay and the creative spark is right there.
And Rex, who kind of fuels so much of that chaos, he had this really rigid worldview, didn't he? Very scientific, materialist, loved math, no ideas but in things.
He did. Very much grounded in the physical. But interestingly, the analysis highlights how that starts to shift a bit towards the end of his life. He gets curious about, bigger questions, spirituality even.
Really? How does that come out?
Well, near the end, when he's quite ill, he actually says something quite remarkable to Jeannette. He says something like, if the quantum physics suggests that God exists, I'm more than willing to entertain the notion.
Trying to bridge science and faith.
Sort of, yeah. He talks about the boundary between order and turbulence, a scientific concept, and wonders if it implies some kind of rational design behind everything. Even if he frames it scientifically, it's a huge shift.
It is, a crack in the materialist armor.
And that Dylan Thomas epigraph, when you look at the whole poem, it actually reinforces this sense of hope. It talks about life as this difficult journey, on a dark path, but suggests that maybe a well-lit heaven is the destination. It subtly offers a kind of hope for Rex despite everything.
Okay, so that's the literary and philosophical angle. What about the psychology? How do analysts use depth psychology, like Jungian ideas, to understand what's going on inside the family?
Oh, the Jungian lens is incredibly useful here for understanding why they were stuck kind of horizontally for so long. You start with the concept of the shadow.
The hidden parts of ourselves.
Exactly, the stuff we repress or deny. Jeanette's own shadow is pretty clear early on, that intense shame she feels when she sees her mom dumpster diving as an adult. She tries to hide her past.
But the analysis seems to point to Rex as carrying the bigger, more destructive family shadow.
Very much so. He's seen as the main driver of the dysfunction, and the sources strongly suggest that his shadow originates from unacknowledged trauma, specifically childhood sexual abuse by his own mother, Irma.
Wow, okay.
And Rex, unable to confront that, uses alcohol to numb the pain. This leads to what Jungians call shadow projection. When he's drunk, he becomes that angry-eyed stranger, projecting his own inner turmoil onto Rosemary, onto the kids.
And the kids, meanwhile, are literally demon hunting in the desert. They're looking outside.
When the real demons are internal, inside the unconscious. It's a classic misdirection of energy.
And that ties into his pride, too, doesn't it? What the analysis calls his inflation.
Yes, exactly. That exaggerated sense of self-importance. It's this pride, this inflation, that stops him from admitting he has a drinking problem or from holding down a regular job. It fuels all those ridiculous dreams and empty promises.
Like the prospector machine.
And the biggest one of all, the glass castle.
Ah, the title itself, the
Wow.
ultimate symbol. When you look at what that glass castle actually was or wasn't, what does it represent psychologically?
It's maybe the most powerful metaphor in the book. Rex has this grand plan, right? Build a prospector, find gold, use the gold to build this amazing solar-powered glass castle.
The dream home.
The dream home. But it never gets past drawings. And then, even more concretely, remember when Brian and Jeannette actually dig the foundation pit in Welsh? They believe in it. They put in the work.
Yeah. And what does Rex do with that hole they dug, that foundation?
He fills it with garbage.
Yeah.
Literally throws the family's trash in it.
Oh, man.
And the analysis is blunt here. It basically says, just like that physical foundation gets filled with trash, the family's foundation is trash. It's unstable. It stinks. The glass castle isn't a symbol of hope. It's a symbol of Rex's paralysis, his potential buried under dysfunction.
That's devastating. So if the parents are trapped, like that Rosemary even calls Rex a cross we must bear, suggesting a kind of codependency,
Right.
how on earth do the kids break free? How do they find that wholeness, that individuation the psychologists talk about? They needed a different plan.
They absolutely did. And their journey, that upward path, is often mapped onto William Bleak's stages of growth. It shows their psychological development.
Okay, how does that work?
So they start in the desert section, which is seen as this stage of innocence. They're living this chaotic life, but they're often unaware of how bad it really is. Jeannette gets badly burned, but mainly remembers the adventure of the hospital, not really the pain in her telling.
Right, life is an adventure.
Then they move to Welch. That's the stage of experience. Suddenly they know life is hard, it's dangerous, it's miserable, the illusions are gone.
And then New York City, that's the final stage.
That's organized innocence. This is crucial. They're fully aware of the flaws, the history, the pain, their parents' issues, but they consciously choose not to let it dictate their happiness or their future. Jeannette talks about being never happier than at her first basic job in New York. They've integrated the past without being destroyed by it.
So what were the practical steps? It wasn't magic. What allowed them to actually do that?
Well, the analysis boils it down to a few core things, consistent across Laurie, Jeannette, and Brian. Native intelligence, focus, and hard work. It wasn't a lottery win. It was incremental progress, education, getting jobs, saving money, sheer determination.
And Jeannette even quotes her mother's line, "What doesn't kill you will make you stronger." She finds value in the hardship.
She does. She explicitly says she received incredible gifts from her upbringing, despite everything, and perhaps the ultimate sign of her achieving that psychological wholeness, that individuation.
Is writing the book itself?
Exactly. Writing the glass castle is the act of bringing that shadow, all that chaos, to light, making sense of it, ordering it. The book is the real glass castle, a structure built from the salvaged pieces of the past. Walls herself talks about this saving paradox, that often things we don't like about ourselves are where our greatest strengths lie.
Finding strength in the flaws. And the book ends with that incredibly vivid image.
Yes, the final sentence. The candle flames dancing along the border between turbulence and order. It's perfect. Psychologically, turbulence is the unconscious, the chaos. Order is conscious awareness, integration, that dancing border, that dynamic balance. That's the sweet spot where growth happens. It signals hope.
So pulling it all together, the big takeaway seems to be that real success, real growth, doesn't come from grand, impossible dreams like a literal glass castle.
Right.
It comes from the grind. Education, work, focus, and crucially, facing the messy, turbulent stuff in your past instead of trying to outrun it.
Couldn't say it better. And Jeannette Walls herself offers maybe the best advice,
Yeah.
whether you're facing freshman year or just life. I believe if you get those two things, if you get a sense of self-esteem and a love of education, that you can make it through just about anything. Simple, but powerful.
It really is. Okay, one last thought to leave you with, something the sources touch on about Jeanette's life after the book's timeline. Her first husband, Eric, was apparently the total opposite of her father. Super responsible, organized, paid the bills on time.
The stable choice.
Right. But they divorced. Her second husband, John, she described as being a lot like her. They shared Appalachian roots, moved around more. There was maybe a bit more of that familiar turbulence, perhaps. It makes you wonder, does seeking the absolute opposite of your past actually block your own path to wholeness? Maybe true self-acceptance comes not from rejecting your history entirely, but from integrating it, the good and the bad, into who you are now. What part of your own history might you still be trying to live in opposition to? Something to think about.